Hello, everybody, and welcome to Talking Tuesday. Today, just as a warning, we are going to be talking about some World of Warcraft lore today. We are going to be talking about Ragnaros the Fire Lord. We'll talk all about his history. We will talk about his lore. We will get to the Ragnaros Lightbringer card in Hearthstone, and why, as a lore master, I have absolutely no problem with it whatsoever, and I don't really know why people thought that it was such a big deal. Alright, so, if you're not interested in that, um, you know, you can go. If you don't want to be spoiled for in the future when we talk about Ragnaros in World of Warcraft, you can go. But because the Ragnaros Lightbringer card was making such a stir, I felt like I should probably talk about it a little bit. Just because, I know the lore, and I don't feel nearly as strongly as other people who know the lore do, so share my 2 cents, I guess. In the beginning of the universe of the Warcraft series, the Titans created Azeroth. Once they were happy with their creation, they went out across the cosmos to create the rest of the universe. While they were away, the old gods permeated the great beyond. They invaded Azeroth and latched onto it like a cancer, corrupting and destroying. They used many different methods to destroy the Titans' work. They used the curse of flesh, turning their minions and servants into what would in the future become the mortal races. They had their insectoid slaves who would fight and destroy in their name. And they had the elemental lords, 4 beings harnessing the natural powers used to create Azeroth and corrupting them and controlling them to destroy and cause havoc across the planet. When the Titans returned to defend their creation, they didn't kill the elemental lords. Instead, they banished them, creating an individual elemental realm for each of them to live in and rule over, and then interconnecting the realms not to Azeroth but to each other, so that the elements could war amongst themselves and expend all of their power. Over time, some of the elements began to calm down and cool, and some of the old gods' influence began to wane on them. Meanwhile, others became ever more violent and aggressive. Fast forward to 300 years before World of Warcraft Classic, otherwise known as the fall of the Kiraj Empire. There is a war going on amongst the dwarvish clans. They're trying to decide who has the right to rule among them. The Dark Dwarves began to amass an army. Their emperor goes into the Blackrock Mountain. He goes to the depths, to the molten core, and begins to channel all of the powerful elements of flame hidden within. His goal is to create a giant fire elemental to destroy all of the other dwarvish clans and cement his right to rule. He succeeds in summoning it. However, Ragnaros the Fire Lord is not so easily controlled. For his foolishness, Ragnaros killed Emperor Thorison and used his body as a puppet slave in order to enslave the entire Dark Iron clan and use them for Ragnaros' dark purpose. He has the Dark Iron dwarves mine throughout the mountain and create powerful golems which his elementals will inhabit, and he intends to create an army of these golems to take over all of Azeroth. 300 years later, during the fall of the Kiraj Empire, the players invade the molten core and banish Ragnaros back to his realm in the Firelands. Fast forward again to Cataclysm, where Deathwing, a corrupted black dragon under the influence of the old gods, shatters the barrier between these elemental realms and brings the elemental lords back to Azeroth. He commands the elemental lords to resume their onslaught in the name of their dark god masters. However, half of the elemental lords choose to disobey. Of the four, we have Alakir the Wind Lord and Ragnaros the Fire Lord. Those two join Deathwing and continue their onslaught of Azeroth. The two that disobey, sorry, my hands are going off the screen. The two that disobey and instead ally with the mortal races, with some help of the players, of course, is Therazane the Earth Mother and Neptulon the King of the Sea. They don't want to serve the old gods anymore, and so in retribution, Deathwing sends more old god minions to try to capture, corrupt, or destroy them as necessary. The players will save them throughout the course of Cataclysm and end up stopping Deathwing. Now, in the Firelands, when you go and invade Ragnaros' realm, in normal, he manages to escape again, but in heroic, and in, I think it also happens in mythic, I'm not 100% sure on that one, Cenarius, Malfurion Stormrage, and I think his name is Hamal Rune Totem, not 100% sure on that name either, managed to force Ragnaros into fighting a final battle against the players. Now, in the dialogue, Cenarius says that he may have perished. However, the raw primal energies that powers Ragnaros can never be destroyed. Someone will, in fact, rise and take these powers for themselves. Now, I have a theory here. I theorize that one of the other elements, like Baron Geddon or one of the other fire elementals, manages to take up this cup and takes the elemental powers for his own. However, without Deathwing or any more connection to the old gods, and with the other elemental lords already beginning to turn against their old god masters, I don't see any reason why the new Ragnaros couldn't be a good guy. Like that seems perfectly reasonable to me. It's like, yeah, he's not the same Ragnaros. I mean, look, there are some immortals. Ragnaros is not a demon, so killing him in his own realm wouldn't have worked, except Firelands isn't his realm. It was created by the Titans to imprison him. So the Firelands is not Ragnaros' realm. And elementals have proven that they can come back over and over and over again. So, even though Cenarius says he's dead, I don't think that he is really an authority to say that. Ragnaros could just as easily come back as he is, but even if he's gone and Cenarius is right, then another elemental can just take up the cup, and maybe the new elemental wants to be called Ragnaros, because that's like the crown. Like that's the title an elemental has to be called in order to be the Fire Lord. Like we couldn't have what's another good fire elemental name? We couldn't have Cinder Fleshseer the Fire Lord. It wouldn't sound right. Not for World of Warcraft lore, because we already have Ragnaros. So the new elemental calls himself Ragnaros the Fire Lord. And if he's a good guy, well, why a paladin? Well, it makes sense for him to be a paladin. The paladins and priests all use cleansing fire, holy fire, if there was going to be an elemental embodiment of the light that that paladins and priests use, it would be a fire elemental. So it makes sense that if the Fire Lord were to become a good guy, he would be of the light. Why a paladin? Well, because a priest elemental lord, I mean, if it were Neptulon, sure, but if it were a fire elemental being a priest, I don't know. It seems like even as a good guy, fire is way too aggressive to be anything other than a paladin. So it makes sense that if the Fire Lord were to become a good guy, or the next Fire Lord were to become a good guy, it would be a paladin. So Ragnaros the Lightbringer makes perfect sense if or when that ever happens. Now, I will say that a lot of people disagree with me, and that's jumping the shark. Even I have the Hearthstone wiki open. According to Ben Brode, one of the people who works on this, I don't know his official, what his job is. I'm sorry, I haven't had time to look that up. But according to him, quote, "We knew we wanted to flip a lot of characters from good to evil in this expansion. We also knew that Ragnaros, once enslaved by the old gods, could be fun to see flip in the same way. The problem is Ragnaros is already an evil elemental lord." Well, we've already explained why that can change. There's already been 2 of the elemental lords swap sides. You know, it's not unreasonable to me that this trend would continue. Back to the quote. "So we went the other way with it and explored what he might look like if he were uncorrupted. Paladins in general are the one bastion of hope in Whispers of the Old Gods, with many of their cards themed around standing against the oncoming darkness. Having Ragnaros lead the charge against his former masters seemed like it could be pretty awesome, Hence, Ragnaros the Lightlord." Oh my god, I've been calling him the Lightbringer this whole time and his name is the Lightlord. I'm such a moron! Now, apparently, a lot of people, there was some immediate backlash with other lore masters saying that this was beyond a stretch. Like, this was taking it to the breaking point. And even Ben Brode said that the card was the very edge in terms of playing with the game's lore. But I disagree. I think you've already done some wildly crazy stuff that puts this to shame. So, I have absolutely no problem with this. It makes perfect sense to me that this would be the natural course of events. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that card. That was the history of Ragnaros. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Bye, everybody.